1.1 is right around the corner, and I am still stuck deciding on what I am going to cycle start. Welcome back, everybody. The name is Wolf, and this is my second option for what I will be diving into with 1.1. This is a Sorcerer. We know that the Sorcerer, of course, has had many updates to the mana scaling and all kinds of craziness, including uniques that are very appropriate for the Sorcerer archetype. And I think that one of them has got my attention in such a way that I might want to build around it. So without further ado, let's get into the actual unique we want to build around, and then into the rest of the build that I kind of have theory crafted. Now, the unique that got my interest was the wand known as Triboelectra. I'm going to call it Tri for short because I have no idea how to pronounce that. It has some incredible stats like spell damage and cast speed implicit with a little mana cost reduction, which is very, very comfy. But it comes in with like a bunch of lightning spell skill level ups, which is incredible. Static orb tendrils for coverage, which is very good. An entire evade mechanic attached to static orb. So you get this pseudo auto bomber effect where you just like kind of move through the map, you dodge, and you kill packs automatically. And then on top of that, you have more cooldown reduction on that very aforementioned evade. This is very, very good, especially if you combine this with the Fragment of Enigma, which is what we did on the runemaster, which also used a wand, so it becomes this very plug-and-play kind of playstyle that we then have customized for the Sorcerer, because the Sorcerer got such incredible buffs. And that's kind of the premise of the build. Now, of course, the wonderful thing about this build going wrong, if it does go wrong, I don't think it will, but if it does go wrong, is that the Sorcerer is pretty much meta this cycle. So you can always easily switch to any other mana stacker, because everybody and their grandma on Sorcerer is going to do a mana stacker, right? And after discussions on the official Discord, this is what I ended up with as my pseudo auto bombing, mana stacking, in-stacking, spark charge detonating, static orb auto casting Sorcerer. It's a bit of a mouthful, so open wide and let's check out the skills. We are building around static orb for both single target and AoE clear, automatic AoE clear mostly. So we're going to pick up the orbital fulmination. This is going to allow us to have a bunch of spinnies around us that are going to just destroy things automatically. No brain, just pain. For the enemy, we are a mana stacker, so we have to pick up the mana stacking charge node, of course. We're also picking up Scatter Blast because this is going to be bang for our buck. This is just good value with all those static orbs sending out smaller orbs, which is going to be very, very good. We are picking up 2 points in Fusion Blast, which is not really necessary because the chains don't matter too much as long as you have an equal number, kind of. And then on top of that, we have Atomic Manipulation. However, if you're feeling like you want more consistency, if you have enough mana regen, you might want to cut this Atomic Manipulation and then go Static Armor here, which is going to be really, really good as it allows you to get some consistency in your build that otherwise might have to be more chance-based. I'm not sure if this is going to be the way, Static Armor. I think it will be in the end. I have to find out how it feels, because we are also going to be using Lightning Blast, which also has a way of triggering Lightning Aegis. So it really depends if you want to trigger it through Static Armor or through the Lightning Blast itself. I think in the end I might go Static Armor, but it really depends on how it feels, right? Right now, however, I am aiming to get Lightning Attunement through the Lightning Blast. We're also picking up Convergence, which is why clearing with Static Blast is not really going, or Static Blast with Lightning Blast is going to be a good thing, because we're trying to converge it, if you will, onto the single target. We have a double and a quadruple cast chance for that burst. We also have front loaded, giving us access to the Cloud Answer. We are a Spark Charge build. And then, of course, we have Detonate Spark and Spark Charge damage. So everything kind of locks into place. The Lightning Aegis is important because it's not only is going to give us more DR and lightning damage, it's also going to give us more lightning cast speed scaling with the idols, which is the same tech I used on my runemaster. Like, my runemaster is very similar to this, so it's very comfortable to kind of go into it. However, speaking of things that are not comfortable, then Flame Ward. This is going to be a little different for me. Normally, I go with Flame Runner and the extra charge, but now we're going to go Dilation, Energize to get access to some Recollection, but more importantly, Prismatic Buffer for more tank, Barrier for more tank, which then ultimately allows us to get mana efficiency, which is always very nice, because the more mana we preserve, the more mana we can use to tank damage with. But more importantly, Mental Aegis is going to be very important for our defensive layer. As you can see, it's going to give us a mind over matter effect, if you are familiar with Path of Exile, allowing us to absorb a portion of the damage we take into mana. So we have both health, ward, and mana kind of absorbing the damage that we take. Or more specifically, if we do it right, ward and mana, which is very, very good. So that's going to be very interesting to find out if I can get my muscle memory to be okay with not being able to use an extra charge with dual Aegis right there. Very important. Very important. We are, however, going to potentially get haste through the Citadel boots, which is possible. We also have Flame Rush still giving us a lot of movement on top of that. We are going to get a lot of distance. Where is it? We should be getting a lot. Yeah, here. The Solar Rush is going to give us a lot of distance. But more about that in just a second. Actually, no, let's just talk about it right now. Because we are doing Flame Rush as a movement skill. We have the mana efficiency. We have the Runic Eclipse for some DR. Very good. But more importantly, the Beta Decay is mandatory. That's going to give us another Static Orb autocast. Which is, of course, going to help us clear tremendous amounts of damage. We do get a little bit of Frenzy on exit, which is nice. The speed and range are going to be very comfortable. And then we have a little bit of area and damage. You could skip this and maybe put in some Shred if that's what you want. You could also try to have a very small chance for Ember Wake to trigger any spark charges. So maybe you can do that if you are feeling particularly frisky. I'm just going to go with the area for comfort. But yeah, you could do any combination of those 3 points depending on how you want to go around doing it, right? It's entirely up to you. Having that said, though, if we are going to be using a lack of haste, because normally we would get it through Flame Ward, one of the things you could do is an experimental haste effect. When you use a traversal skill, you might end up getting, the wonderful haste, which is going to feel really, really good. I used this on my runemaster, and it changed the build from feeling great to just phenomenal. So I'm honestly going to do this. I kind of forgot to put it in there, so we're just going to appreciate that I not have that it now is there, because it's too good. It feels so good. It's not mandatory. It doesn't change anything. It's just going to feel so good. And I like it when things feel good, right? However, last but not least, the focus. This is pretty much what every sorcerer has recommended to me, especially in the early stages. We predict that we can probably get rid of this once we have enough mana with like really insane good gear. But until then, it's probably wise to take the focus, because you do end up getting a little haste after channeling, which is why it is not mandatory to have haste on your boots, right? But yeah, you do get energy infusion for the haste, ward per second, a little bit of value right there. More importantly, we get armor intelligence and more armor with the iron stance, so we survive while we channel and stand still. Increased mana regen, very good. Increased mana regen per missing mana, very potent, because that's kind of the purpose of focus, of course, to regen mana when you have low mana. More importantly, if you go negative and start charging, you get the null profusion proc, which is very, very good. Max mana gained while negative is very powerful. It also allows you to get the null infusion right here. And ultimately, as you can see, Calm Mind might also actually provide us with some tankiness, which is very good in terms of like standing still and channeling something when the enemy is around. So that's kind of what we're going to do. I'm not sure what we're going to replace focus with, assuming we end up in a space where we can actually drop it because we have enough mana sustain. There are some options that we could use. Like some people have been talking about Arcane Ascendance, which might be kind of nice, or Frostwall. It really depends on personal preference. Some people prefer Snap Freeze for the stun, although the stun locking no longer works, I believe. So I might presume that they will wander from that position. But this is kind of what my skills are. In terms of passives, it's very simple. It's very similar to my in-stacking runemaster. We're picking up Arcanist, we are picking up Mage Flurry, and then we are picking up Knowledge of Destructions because we are also crit-based. Very similar. In terms of the runemaster itself, we are picking up a point of unsealed mana and an arcane focus because we do want to get the mental catalysis. This allows us to get crit immune. Very, very good. On top of that, we are still using a wand, so we're going to get a bunch of crit multi. Same reason why we use this on the runemaster build. We, however, picking up a bunch of transcendence points here just for the ward sustain and the travel notes, more importantly, because as you can see, I can't get rid of more points. And the points down here for Rune of Removal, Rune of Word of Catalysm, and Quintessence of Triumph don't really excite me that much versus the ward per second here. We also have a Sphere of Protection for a little bit more DR, so we should be ending up quite tanky since we are shocking constantly. So I am okay and confident that this is going to feel pretty good. In terms of the actual main class, though, that we have mastered, the Sorcerer, we are picking up 5 points for calculated destruction. Gives us the 5-point bonus and gives us, of course, the obvious spell crit chance scaling with intellect. We're picking up Mana Shell, ward per second per 10 mana. This is a no-brainer because we're also stacking mana. We're picking up Wisdom for mana regen based on mana. This is all very simplistic and understandable. We have a Chronomancer, which is what we picked up on the runemaster as well, because it gives us access to Pen and Leech, which is very, very good. This is going to take care of pretty much everything. However, if you can drop this for something else, you could possibly contemplate maybe going into Essence of Celerity for the attack speed or the cast speed power. However, the Leech is going to help you deal with your life. The Lightning Pen is a really powerful damage boost, so I don't think that's going to be worth it. But you could go for the Essence of Celerity or Arcane Momentum if that's what you prefer. Lost Knowledge, just travel notes, ward gain per 15 current mana, which is very, very good because we're going to have up to at least 1,000 mana, right? So these are very good travel notes to get to where we need to go, with Crackling Precision for more crit chance, giving access to Crit Multi, which is, of course, the majority of our damage scaling, the crit shenanigans. We have Intelligence or Arcane Insight right here, Ward Decay Threshold per int, more int scaling. Do I need to say more? We have Mana Bulwark, so another mana, well, like mind over matter effect is what I was looking for. So a lot of damage is going to get pumped into our mana, which is why Mana Sustain is very important. We're also a Arcane Current user since we are Spark Charges. And now we can actually use skills that are more costly than 40 mana. So once we do that, as you can see, more Spark Charge chance with 40 mana cost skills, which is an extra Spark Charge because it's 100%. And it's just an extra Spark Charge altogether, which is really, really good. Now, it does say your skills which cost at least 40 mana inflicts. It doesn't say you have to use it. It just says your skills. So this also should proc on the automated casts, but I'm not entirely sure if it does. If somebody could clarify, that'd be great. On top of that, we have Archmage, which is the big reason people want to go Sorcerer. Not only do we get spell damage, but more importantly, we have a chance to refund a percentage of our mana. And then we have double value at 300 and then triple value with 1,000 max mana. This is why you need a minimal of 1,000 maximum mana. We're also picking up 3 points of Mana Well to get mana spent gained as ward. So we're going to get massive amounts of ward. We're going to get massive amounts of mana tanking, mana damage scaling. It's going to be really, really good. In terms of our gear, though, our blessings are simple. We have crit multi because we are a crit build. We are picking up poison res. Depending on how your gear falls, you can also go with all res, of course. Do what needs to be done. We're picking up a little bit of armor. There is an argument to be made for Grand Embers of Immortality. I am more comfortable with armor, but you could go with endurance instead, especially if you go with the endurance helmet that was new introduced this particular season, like the Seed of Ekidrasil, which I'm looking at this and it looks really, really enticing. Like there's a mind over matter effect. We have the endurance scaling, maximum health gains as endurance. We have some flat health, some chance to just not take damage. It looks really, really good. I, however, don't know how to solve my crit in a comfortable way when I go down that path, so I've opted for a different helmet. More about that in just a second. We're also picking up percentage armor, because armor is just very, very nice. I'm trying to hit that 5k point, but we still have to go a little bit further. And we also have the mana here, because we are mana stacking. So, of course, we want mana. Very, very good. You have some other options. You could go for Shred Lightning Res, but I feel like mana might just be better. However, honestly, if you have Shred Lightning Res that you just want to stack fully and fast, this might just be better for burst damage, honestly. Because we're doing many, many, many hits. However, mana is just a more comfortable way, especially early game. Speaking of things that are comfortable, we are picking up the Prismatic Gaze. Just like within the runemaster for the base crit, we're getting a little bit of elemental shred as well, a little bit of less elemental damage taken. Just very good value stats right here. Just make sure you get the crit chance of +4, as well as high a possible static orb. If you can't get static orb, int, of course, is also very much appreciated. In a perfect world, you would get both int and static orb, right? We have a bit of a bone amulet, which is mostly just here for the resistances, the shred, the spell crit, the mana. I did try to maybe get a frailty on it, which is always comfortable since we don't have the Mad Alchemist ladle, so I'm trying to find ways to get some of my debuffs back in. Not necessary. Just make sure that whatever reses you need. I'm actually going to cut the res right here for the obvious reason, because we have some RNG items in our build as well. But yes, pop off, figure it out. It should be okay. We have the Tribo wand right here that we spoke about. The spell crit is pretty much mandatory to try to get to a 100% spell crit chance. Other than that, spell damage is really good. Cast speed on certain ones are good. Mana, if possible. Anything that is beneficial to the build crit multi, if possible, is really, really nice to grab. I'm not actually sure if crit multi is possible on a wand. Give me 1 second. That is. If you have a 100% crit chance, go crit multi. Essentially, try to get crit high is my point, and then get whatever is beneficial, right? Speaking of things that are beneficial, we have the Arcane Regalia. This is an interesting chest, because what was told to me on the Discord is that you can actually get the increased spell crit doubled if you have over 300 max mana. I never really contemplated this particular mod, because it doesn't. I believe it is an experimental one, so you have to find it, which is a tricky one. But yes, if you do, it is going to be really, really good. Other than that, we have, of course, the intelligence. We have the expected mind over matter effect and some more armor. Dealer's choice. The Fragment of the Enigma. Just get whatever is necessary. Spell crit, mana. Get all these wonderful stats and go from there. Just make sure that you have a really good rolled Fragment of the Enigma if you want to have a good time. Now, here is where things get interesting. The Font of the Erased is a really powerful ring for this build. Not only do we get percentage health and mana spent gained as ward, we also get a little bit of res, which is comfy, and we get ward gained on hit per missing mana, which is also possibly really good. But more importantly, we are looking to get ones with intelligence and spell damage, or otherwise lightning damage, as well as some good resistances. So it really depends on how you're going to fill up your gear. Like, for example, the bone amulet, we still have another suffix, and on the belt we have another open suffix. Those are designed for resistances, but that really depends on where you're going to roll your resistances on the Font of the Erased. Because if I get a void res and a necrotic res, I don't have to get them elsewhere, right? So depending on the Font of the Erased, you want to get resistances in addition to intelligence and spell damage or lightning damage. Speaking of resistances, as you can see right here, we have the Praetorian Belt without one. It's open. Get whatever one you want that is needed. Other than that, lightning damage. Mana regen is like a really nice one to have. Not necessary, though. We're looking to get crit immunity through a nice reduction here on the belt. I think that's the best place to get it. And if you have the means to do so, doing the Potion Ailment Cleanse is very comfortable to like kind of just seal that in on the belt as well. I'd like doing that if I don't have a built-in cleanse mechanic through like Frostclaw, or if I play a druid with Warcry. We have another Font of the Erased, same thing. Intelligence, crit chance if you need it still, otherwise spell damage, lightning damage, and try to get some resistances. We have the glove right here with intelligence and mana. As we are into mana stackers, we have some shred because we are hit based, and that's going to help us with damage. We also have more armor and possible some mitigation for dot damage that you can maybe seal in, which is very good. The implicit itself already gives it as well, but if you can double up on that, that of course is very, very comfortable. I believe there's a calculator that allows you to kind of figure out which one you're going to get if you do it manually, as opposed to trying to find them in the wild. I'm not sure what that link is. I'm sure that somebody can grant it to you, but there is a calculator where you deterministically can figure out which particular mage mod you're going to get on it, which is very, very nice. Citadel boots, we have the typical suspects: intelligence, movement speed, some more armor, and if you do have the means to get it, the sealed haste is very, very comfy, but not necessary. It's just a personal thing that I enjoyed since I did it on my runemaster and kind of fell in love with it. And then here we have the knowledge of an erased mage. Not only do we get mana and mana gained as ward, which of course is phenomenal for this build, we get +1 skills, we get some more mind over matter, and we have a little bit of endurance applying to missing mana, or at least endurance applies to additional health per 10 missing mana, which of course is very, very good. So the more mana we lose due to damage taken, the more endurance we're going to get, which is why you might perhaps want to go with Grand Embers of Immortality, perhaps. Could be, to help it cap out a little bit better, to maximize the values. I'm not sure. It really depends on how things are going to feel. But other than that, get intelligence, get mana, and then get resistances. And that is pretty much my plan right now. I'm still going to have to figure out the endurance and the endurance threshold to kind of feel how that ends up going. But we'll figure it out. As you can see, endurance applies to additional health per missing mana. So it's really endurance threshold, effectively. So if you want to run the endurance Grand Embers of Immortality right here, you can totally do that too. Honestly, if you do have a knowledge of the erased maze, it's probably better. I probably should consider that. Oh, in terms of idols, before I forget, we have the large arcane idol because we are running lightning eggs pretty much 100%. There's nothing here on the suffix that's really, really good that we can use. Sadly, you could make an argument for health if you were to use the other helm that we talked about. There is some lightning damage you could possibly use if you don't need the resistances. But if you do need the resistances, it's probably better to just stick with that if you would prefer. Oh, let's go with elemental res. Where's the... There it is. Yes. So it really depends on if you want to run Grand Resolve of Humanity, for example, which will buff your elemental res, and then you can drop one of them for damage, for example. It really depends on how your gear falls, right? We also have some additional cold res right here to cap that out, but you want mana and armor in a perfect world, depending on how your resistances fall after all. And then for the 3x1s, it's just mana and more mana. Because we're mana stacking, armor is going to be good for mitigation. So it's very, very straightforward in that sense. So hopefully this makes sense. This is my current plan. If it fails, we can always go and bombard the world with e-girl empowered meteors, and we'll go from there. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Good luck on your 1.1 cycle launch. I'm going to decide between my Forge Guard or my Sorcerer. I am still on the fence. Yes, I'm going to think about it. Have a good night. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. I'm out.